You're a vampire. You stopped aging in 1693. Nothing else stopped. The worst thing about being you is not the sunlight, not the garlic, not the thirst, not the part where every romance novel makes your life sound like a perfume ad. It is something quieter. We will get to it. You have time. You have always had time. That is its own problem. You did not ask for this. Nobody asks for this. The ones who say they would are the ones who have not done a single Tuesday yet. You were a regular person in a regular village in a regular century doing the boring work of being alive, when something in the dark decided you looked promising. After that, you stopped being a person. You became a habit, and the habit is older than every friend you have ever had. The first night was easy. The first decade was easy. You looked the same. You sounded the same. Nobody noticed. You used to be able to attend a wedding without doing arithmetic. You used to be able to make a friend without scheduling the part where you outlived them. You used to be able to plan a year ahead and have the year actually mean something instead of being one tally mark in a column you are no longer counting. Then one decade in the early 1800s, you realized you could not remember your mother's voice. Not the words, the voice itself, the pitch of it, the thing your ear used to know without trying. You stood in a quiet room for a long time, trying to summon it. And what came back instead was the sound of a stranger you had met in Vienna in 1812 who had a similar accent. That stranger had been the substitute. You had not noticed the swap happen. That was the first time you understood what was actually being taken. It was not the body. It was never the body. Once the voices started leaving, the faces started leaving too. First the edges, then the eyes, then the whole face, replaced by the idea of the face, which is not the same thing, and you know it. You have a small wooden box. You have carried it for 300 years. It has one ring in it, and one folded letter, and one lock of hair that is now the color of dust. You cannot remember which of them this hair belonged to. You used to know. The knowing was the entire point of the box. The box outlived the knowing. You have been to every city worth visiting. You have been to most of them twice. You have been to a few of them so often the names changed and the streets changed and the language changed, and you stayed. You learned 6 languages because the people who taught you the first language died. Then the people who taught you the second language died. Then you stopped naming the languages and just collected them. You have read every important book. You have read most of them twice. The second reading is worse than the first, because you remember the first reader, who was you. And you cannot ask that reader what she thought. And it gets worse. Take stock. Inhale. Exhale. We are not done. The worst thing in this story is not the long life. It is not even the long memory. We will get there. Stay. You have outlived every friend who ever learned your real name. That number, by the way, is small. People you tell are people you have to leave. So the people you let in shrink, century by century, until the list fits on the back of a card you no longer need to write down, because there is nobody on it. You loved someone in 1742. You loved someone in 1809. You loved someone in 1888. You loved someone in 1954. They are all the same person in your memory now. You know this is not true. You cannot make them separate anymore. The 4 of them stand in a single doorway in your head, with one composite face, and you do not know which name belongs to which mouth, and you would never say this out loud, because saying it out loud is the part where you find out you have already forgotten the names. The feeding is not the part the movies sell. The feeding is logistics. The feeding is finding a city large enough to be anonymous in, and a routine boring enough to disappear inside, and a story plain enough that nobody asks a second question. You do not lurk in alleys. You have a lease. You have a dentist who thinks you are 40. You have a building manager who thinks you keep odd hours because of a job you do not have. Hunger is not the curse. Hunger is just an appointment. You keep the appointment. You go home. The curse is Tuesday. The curse is the next Tuesday. The curse is the one after that. You have survived 400,000 of them. You did not count. The calendar counted for you. The calendar is the one thing in your apartment that has not changed in 3 centuries. It is the only honest object you own. A mirror used to be the famous problem. It is not the problem. The problem is the photograph. The photograph holds the face you were wearing the day it was taken. You can look at the photograph and not recognize the person in it. The person in it is you. You know this because you remember holding the camera. You do not remember the face. The mirror is kinder. The mirror only shows you today. Today you can still place. You stopped going to funerals about 140 years ago. Not because the funerals were sad, because the funerals were short. A whole person, narrated in under an hour. You started doing the math on how long your own funeral would take if anyone tried to narrate you, and the answer was no funeral could ever hold it, and there is no one left who would try. Take a breath. We are halfway. The promised worst part is still out there. It is closer than it was. You have tried to stop. Twice. The body does not cooperate. Sunlight is a story. Stakes are a story. The thing inside you that wants to keep going is older than the part of you that is tired, and it always wins the argument by simply outlasting it. You have tried to be ordinary. You have taken up hobbies. You have learned the violin. You have learned the piano. You have learned to paint. You can do all of these well, because you have had 100 years to practice each of them. And none of it feels like anything, because you remember the year you started, and the year you started is older than the country you started in. You have tried to fall in love on purpose. It works. That is the problem. It works every time. The mechanism does not break. The person breaks. You have tried to make a friend who knew. You found one, once. He was like you. He lasted 200 years. Then one morning he decided he was finished, and he walked into the sea at sunrise, and the sea kept him. You stood on the cliff. You did not follow. You wanted to. The thing inside you that wants to keep going had a comment. It always has a comment. You have tried writing it down. You have notebooks. You burned the early ones because reading them felt like reading mail intended for someone else. The someone else was you. You stopped burning them around 1950. Now you keep them. You do not read them. You are afraid of what you used to think. You have tried therapy. The therapist was very kind. The therapist suggested journaling. You did not laugh, because it would have been rude. And here is the part. Here is the deferred worst thing. It is not the body. It was never the body. The body is fine. The body is, frankly, the one thing about this that works. It is the memory. Specifically, it is the memory of yourself. You do not remember being the person who started this. You remember the room. You remember the night. You remember the cold. You do not remember the face you were wearing into it. You do not remember the voice you used to ask for help. You do not remember what you were afraid of before you became the thing other people are afraid of. The person who walked into that room in 1693 is not you. She is a small, sealed character in a story you have been telling about yourself for 330 years. You have told the story so many times that the story is the only version of her left. You are a museum. You are the only exhibit. You are the only visitor. The curator left a long time ago. Nobody comes through. You curate yourself every night, alone, for nobody, out of a quiet duty to a girl whose face you cannot picture anymore. You sit at the window. You watch the city. You wait for the sky to do the thing it does. You stand up. You go to the door. It is Tuesday. Another Tuesday. You have 400,000 of them behind you, and an unknown number ahead of you, and they all look the same from inside. You sharpen the same teeth. You smooth the same cape. You step out into the same night. Somewhere out there is a person who will write a poem about how romantic this is. You will not meet them. You do not read poetry anymore. It uses tenses you do not have. You're a vampire. It sucks. Subscribe for more things the world won't let die.